In verse 4, they shall not offer wine offerings to the Lord, not when they're in Assyria, nor shall their sacrifices be pleasing to him. It shall be like bread of mourners to them. All who eat it shall be defiled, for their bread shall be for their own life. It shall not come into the house of the Lord. When they're carried off to Assyria, they will not be able to make offerings to the Lord when they're in captivity. In Assyria, nothing they offer to the Lord will be pleasing to him. It shall be like the bread of mourners. And just to back up and just to give you maybe a little kind of Bible nerd rabbit trail for you, when you think about all of the commands and all of the laws that God gave regarding the offerings that they were supposed to make, in particular the grain offerings, right, and the drink offering, all of those offerings were tied to the land. When you go into the land, God even says that, when you come into the land, to make a grain offering. This is the kind of grain offering you're going to make. This is the kind of drink offering you're going to make. You're going to make a drink offering of wine. It's all tied to the land. It's all tied to the blessing that God's going to give them from the promised land. Once they're removed from the land of Israel and they go off into Assyria, well, they can't make those offerings anymore because they're not in the land anymore. He says it shall be like bread of mourners, meaning bread that is in the home where someone has died, so it's defiled. It's unclean. In other words, what God is saying here to them is that they're not going to have any kind of relationship with the Lord when they're in Assyria. They're not going to be able to make the prescribed offerings. Once they're removed from the land that those offerings are tied to and they're off in Assyria as slaves, they're not going to be able to keep the offerings anymore. Next Thursday night, next Thursday, is the Day of Atonement for Jewish people. It's the day that they celebrate, the Day of Atonement. But the Jewish people today are not able to make the prescribed offerings that God commands them to make in His Word. Why not? Because there's no temple. There's no priesthood. In fact, there is a Muslim shrine sitting on the location of where the temple once stood. There's the Dome of the Rock. There's a pagan shrine sitting where the temple once stood. And so now the Jews all over the world are going to celebrate the Day of Atonement, but they don't have a way of atoning for their sin because they don't have a temple. They can't make a sacrifice. And that's the judgment of God that prevents them from atoning for their sin. Now, for us as believers in Jesus Christ, we're told that Jesus atones for our sin. He's the atonement. He's the sin offering for us. But it's just like what you have here. He's saying, once you're in Assyria, you can't keep any of these sacrifices. Just like the Jews today can't keep any of their sacrifices. He says, the bread you shall eat will be for your own life, meaning, you're not going to be bringing offerings to the Lord. You're going to be barely surviving in Assyria. And what the Lord is saying here to Israel, I think, is very important for us also. He's telling Israel to think this through. To think this through. Where does this path you're on lead you to ultimately? Often when a person turns from the Lord and forsakes the Lord and starts down a path of sin, they don't think about where that path is going to take them ultimately. They don't think of where it's going to end up. They don't think, well, this is ultimately is going to lead me to a broken relationship with the Lord. This is going to lead me to a broken relationship with my spouse. This is going to lead me to a broken relationship with my kids. This is going to destroy my career. This is going to destroy my reputation. This is going to bring so much shame upon me. This is going to take me to a place that will be really hard to recover from. This is going to take me to a place where just surviving will be difficult, just getting by. And the Lord is warning them here, this is the road that you're on. You stay on this road, you're going to end up in Assyria, where you're completely cut off from me. And you won't be able to make any kind of sacrifice. You're not going to be able to do anything there to please me. Now he says this again. He says this to Israel during the time of harvest. Man, when there's abundance, when there's blessing, when there's great joy, when there's celebration. And it's as if the Lord is saying to Israel, yes, there's blessing right now. Yes, there's abundance right now, but you continue to forsake me. You continue to forsake my commands. And it's not going to be this way in the nation in the future. This blessing and abundance isn't going to continue. Things are going to get really, really difficult. You're going to lose all this. You're going to lose it all. And so verse 5, the Lord continues. And he's talking about when they're in Assyria. When you're slaves in Assyria, what will you do in the appointed day then? When you're slaves in Assyria, what will you do in the day of the feast of the Lord? You're not going to celebrate those feasts in Assyria. Again, if you continue down this path, God is loving and He warns them here. He doesn't want them to go down this path. He sees where it's going to end up for them. He's not willing that any would perish, but that all would come to repentance and salvation. He goes on in verse 6, he says, for indeed they are gone. These things are gone. These feasts, these appointed days, these celebrations that you're enjoying right now, this harvest time that you're celebrating, you're going to lose all of it. You're going to lose it all if you stay on this path.